Welcome. My name's David Bailey, and I'm joined today by a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Aaron Sims, who is a mind-body healing coach and who runs personal coaching and group sessions, helping people to heal their mind and body. So welcome, Aaron. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, David. You're very welcome, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So Aaron, what is mind-body healing coach?
That's a good question. A mind-body healing coach. Well, a mind-body healing coach is someone who helps to create mind-body harmony. I apply mind-body healing techniques. Specifically, they're the techniques that I extracted and have processed and refined and used with people. The techniques that I use to heal myself from paralysis, and that I'm now using to help other people heal from various different physical ailments, illnesses, and diseases. For example, MS, Parkinson's, vertigo, tinnitus, back pains, and there's more too, actually. So they're mind body healing techniques, visualizations, like meditations, and then I combine that with pure coaching. And as you know, David, pure coaching is it's like deeper, meaningful life coaching, where we are able to go deep and expose things that are like emotional barriers and that are stopping us and holding us back in life. And the combination of the two, the reason I call it mind body healing coaching is because I found through experience that mind body healing is fantastic. It's really strong. If you do it right, of course, then it's a very powerful way to use the mind to heal the body. However, what I found is that the first person that I really actually worked with deeply, she was a lady around 29 years old, and she had MS, and her physical symptoms were, she had a numbness in one of her legs and like a tingling sensation that was getting worse. She had slightly blurred eyes. Her vision was a little bit impaired. She struggled for concentration, and most significantly probably is she had really weak hands. She would find that her hands were weak and she struggled to clench them, and quite often they would kind of just give way. And to the point where she had an 18-month-old son, and she would fear holding her 18-month-old son because she feared so deeply. She carried a lot of deep anxiety. She may drop him. Her hands may give way and she may drop him and hurt him. And when I started to work with her, we started to apply these mind-body healing techniques, these visualizations. We did some wonderful experiences, and we really had some beautiful moments where one call in particular, where within the space of 13 minutes, doing this visualization, she was able to like feel this deep strength in her hand. She was able to feel the patches in her leg where she had numbness. She was able to feel them more. And it was like, oh yes. And we both excited. We were both inspired in the moment, because it was like, yes, like, wow, this is powerful. But then she started to improve. Her physical symptoms started to improve significantly and rapidly. But then it was like we hit this brick wall. All of a sudden we couldn't, facilitating with her and her herself, neither of us could quite get beyond it. There was something blocking. It was like, why? If she could do in 13 minutes, she could have that improvement, and she was able to echo that out. What is it that's stopping her now? Like this, it was really frustrating, actually. It was like, how can I help her? Like, what is going on? So we started to look at her life and what was going on in the rest of her life, and broaden our focus. And what was very obvious and became apparent is that there was a lot of anxiety in her life. There was a lot of anxiety surrounding some of her relationships. There was a lot of, I don't want to use, she was holding on to emotions of the past. I was going to say emotional baggage, but that's a really crap way to put it. But there was a lot of emotions that she had from the past that she still hadn't processed fully. So we realized that she was carrying a lot of fear, that carrying a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and a lot of overwhelm due to carrying these emotions. So we started to use pure coaching actually to help her work through these anxieties and overwhelms and stresses, and echo that out into her life. And what we found was is combining the mind body healing techniques themselves consistently and becoming a master at those, plus you combining that with the pure coaching so that she's having a different experience of life, the way that she sees her life, the way that she feels on a daily basis emotionally was very different. And the moment we aligned those two, it was like that invisible brick wall that was there before that we couldn't quite break down. It was like someone came along with a hammer and just smashed through it, and she started to like have significant changes, and quite rapidly. So that's where mind body healing coaching came from, combining the two.
Cool. I like that. So it's not just uh, the techniques, which alone sound really powerful themselves. It's also creating or looking at the emotional environment the person's living in, and the lifestyle that is actually going to allow them to have space and attention to do the techniques in the first place.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting point actually that you've brought up there. Many people feel, certainly with the people that I've worked with and I've spoken to too, many people almost, they feel a bit overwhelmed, like life's busy, life's stressful, and stress and overwhelm, that busyness that we can be surrounded by, it creates this feeling of like there's too much to do in life, I can't handle it all. um, I can't handle life as it is. There's already too much. How can I carve out the space and the time to give myself to feel, to do the mind body healing itself?
Mm.
And what I've found is actually that the reality is there is always time. It's actually really because a lot of people, and myself included in this, actually up until around about 18 months ago, and there actually, in truth, there's still small moments when this creeps in, and obviously I'm more aware now, so it doesn't take control of me and consume me like it did. But that overthinking and analyzing and focusing on the overwhelm and the stress unintentionally, it's like that creates a lack of focus. It creates a lack of clarity, both in the way that the person is feeling and also in the mind. It's like, and without that lack of clarity and without that focus, it tends to be that most people are ineffective. And there's a lot of time in life gets consumed and wasted by the overwhelm and the stress itself. And
Mm.
when we remove that, all of a sudden, it's like trenching through a swamp and trenching through this woods, and we just can't quite see the other side of it. And when we do that, we remove the overwhelm, we remove the stress. All of a sudden, like this opening, it's like magical. The trees just start to bend, and all of a sudden, there's this clear pathway out the other side. And that's what it feels like for people. All of a sudden, life becomes a little bit more easy. It seems to flow. There seems to be more time,
Yeah.
and people have time then to do the mind body healing techniques, which actually they're fun, they're beautiful. It's a really beautiful experience. We experience life in our bodies, and the only real experience of life actually is the way that we're feeling in that moment. If we can connect to that, and being able to connect to that really means that we're able to tap into that beautiful experience in any moment. And it's a wonderful thing. I still do it myself now, even though I've healed myself. Every morning I use it because I have this beautiful experience, and I'm sat in a room by myself,
Mm.
complete silence, and just by focusing my mind into my body and using the visualizations, I get to have this beautiful experience, and that's what other people get to echo out into their lives too. So yeah, that's removing the stress and the overwhelm. Actually, there's always time for people.
Yeah. Beautiful. And you mentioned I know your background, so I know personally how you got involved in this, but I think it would be great if you could share how you got into this, because it is quite specific what you're doing, and it'd be great to hear how you personally got into this kind of like work.
Yeah, thank you, David. It was 12 years ago now. I had to think about that. Wow. 12 years ago, I was involved in quite a serious car crash. And it was actually my best friend's 24th birthday. And we went out for a meal. And I'd actually already got a broken leg. My left leg was in a plaster cast from a football injury. So I had been sitting in the front of the car for the last 6 weeks, being chauffeured around by my girlfriend at the time. And this particular night, we'd been out for this meal. We'd celebrated my best friend's 24th birthday. There was myself, my best friend of 8 years, and my girlfriend of 6 years. But then they were brother and sister, actually. And as we left the restaurant and we went to get in the car, I'm kind of walking out the restaurant, and Ollie shouts to me. He says, "Hey, Aaron, I'll be out in a minute. I'm just going to the toilet." So I made my way out on my crutches, and I'm standing by the car, and it's freezing cold. Typical September evening in England, freezing cold. And there was this knowing, this something inside me that I can't really explain. But it was just like this urge, this pull. It was almost like this energetic pull that just grabbed onto me and said, "Get in the car." So I did. And I opened the door, and I crammed the seat forward with my crutch, because it was a little 3-door car, and I made the awkward climb into the back with my broken leg. And that was that. I didn't think anything of it. Ollie came out, we put our seatbelts on, and off we went. And that's when the crash happened. We were traveling around 70, 80 miles an hour, and we lost control. And we were flipped upside down. And as we were midair upside down, we hit a lamppost and landed on the roof. And instantly, I've never been around death before, but instantly I could sense it. It was like this cold, still energy in the air. And I just, somewhere deep down, I knew it. And I was screaming and howling. My back was in agony. It felt like someone had taken a big kitchen knife and was driving it into the base of my spine and twisting it. I was screaming. And I didn't realize at the time, of course, but I'd broken my back quite severely. And I was what felt like probably 4 days, actually. I now know it's about 40 minutes or so. The ambulance arrived and the fire brigade cut me out, and I was taken off to hospital. Then as I got to, I spent the night in Colchester A&E, and that was when I found out that I had broken my back. I'd also dislocated, actually, my T12 and L1, the lower vertebrae, had been pulled apart and lodged one in front of the other. So my spinal cord was trapped. So I dislocated it and broken it. And I didn't really understand what that meant at the time, in truth. All I knew is that my back was in agony. My legs didn't work. I couldn't feel them. And that was when I found out that both Donna and Ollie had been killed. So the next morning, I was airlifted by a helicopter over to Romford Hospital there, because they have a specialist neurological unit there. And I spent 3 weeks in intensive care. And the 3 weeks I spent in intensive care was to plan the operation. There was an orthopedic team and a neurological team that planned the operation, because it was very delicate. Any wrong movements or anything could have meant, well, who knows? It could have meant maybe damaging my spinal cord permanently. It could have even been fatal. We don't know, but it was pretty serious. So I had the operation, and my dad was told after the operation that, "Mr. Timms, everything has gone really well. Your son's operation went really well. It took longer than expected. He was in there for 9 hours. However, the good news is that we realigned the spine without any further damage to the spinal cord. The bad news is his spine is quite significantly damaged, more than we originally suspected. So he's never going to walk again. He's going to be paralyzed for life. And the sooner that you know that, the sooner that you and your family can understand that, the sooner that Aaron knows that, the better is that he can get used to that and come to terms with that." And my dad actually went away. I don't know anyone that's listening whose parents may be able to connect with that. Probably even if you're not parents, the burden of that as a father for your 21-year-old son is pretty heavy. And he went home and he spoke to my stepmother about it. My stepmother's been in the self-healing world, a spiritual world too. since, well, I mean, ever since I knew her, and since 6 years old was when I met her. And the truth is, I mean, I thought she was crazy growing up. The things she used to say to me about the mind can heal the body and about spirituality, I just thought she was cuckoo. I didn't take any notice. I was just too interested in football. But my dad had a conversation with her, and they decided that I wasn't to know the truth. That if I knew the truth, or the doctor's prognosis, actually, not necessarily the truth, but the doctor's prognosis and diagnosis, that then I may give up hope and belief. So my dad actually came back to the hospital, and he lied to me. He told me that I was going to walk again. He told my mother that they think the doctors say that they think I'm going to walk again. He lied to my whole family except my mum's sister. Just morally, he felt like he should tell her the truth. So I went to transfer to Stoke Mandeville, the Spine Injury Centre, with this kind of glorious illusion in my mind that I was going to walk again, that these doctors were going to be miracle doctors, and it was all going to be wonderful. The reality was, when I got there, I was hit with this like wave of like negative. Instantly, I just knew that wasn't really the truth, that I wasn't there to walk again. I was there to be rehabilitated in a wheelchair. And that was probably when it really hit me. It was like being hit by a steam train. The realization that actually I may never walk again. In fact, it's likely I will never walk again. So my stepmother kind of sat next to me in intensive care one day, and she said, "Your mind can heal your body. Your mind can heal your body. Other people have done it. You can too." And she told me the story about Bruce Lee breaking his back, and she told me other stories, and she inspired me. So I just, out of desperation, out of just wanting desperately to walk again, I turned to mind body healing. And the truth is that most of the time I didn't believe it was possible. There were small moments of belief. There was, but actually I visualized. I started to meditate. I'd never meditated before in my life. I started to visualize myself walking. I started to visualize my toe movement. I would even wheel myself down to the physio gym every day in my wheelchair and transfer across onto the exercise bikes. And I would close my eyes. I'd strap my knees in, strap my feet in, and they had like an electric motor, and your feet would move around, designed really for blood flow and circuitry, actually, circulation, sorry. But I would close my eyes and I would vision myself being on the Tour de France and pretending that I was being chased by 150 other cyclists, and just embodied this. And one day, as I'm doing this visualization, my mum came to visit, not my stepmom, my mum. And I told her that, "Hey, Mum, I've been doing this visualization, this Tour de France." And she kind of looked at me like I'm a bit, he bumped his head too. Is he okay? But I closed my eyes and I showed her. And as I started to do it, she screamed. She just like, "Ah!" And it shocked me out of it. I was kind of in this new world, this new reality. It felt very real to me, this Tour de France thing. And I kind of shocked out of it back into the physio gym. And she was crying and shaking, and she pointed to this reader at the front. And the reader, the resistance reader, measured 300%. And what that means is my legs had literally just burst back into life. And that was the moment when I really realized, wow, this stuff actually works. Like, it really works. And from that moment on, of course, I was inspired. I was like, yes, I can do this, and gain momentum. And 12 weeks later, I walked out of hospital. And now I teach others to do the same.
Wow, that's a amazing story. And well, not just a story, that's your life. Like, and that's incredible. And while you were there, the kind of mind body healing stuff that you were doing within the hospital, did you come up with that on your own, or was that through your stepmom, or like, what was there any kind of help from the hospital? Where did you come up with this stuff?
I just played with it. My stepmom kind of planted seeds in my mind. She gave me ideas. She said to me, sit there and vision your toe moving. It's like, feel it. And she would say to me constantly, she would say, feel it, feel it. And I didn't really fully understand what that meant. I mean, I suppose you could argue I still don't to this to its fullest extent. Actually, I'm still
Mm.
learning myself. But she would say, "Feel it, feel it." So I would vision myself feeling it, and I would really feel it. Like I remember, because I played football so much, and I was quite fast before I broke my back, and I would remember running down the football pitch or down the side of the pitch, and my calves like locking, almost like hydraulic pumps, because I played so often. I had really strong legs, and
Mm.
I would remember. It's like I could recall the feeling of that,
Mm.
and I would feel it in the moment. So I'd feel my calves like locking, and vision myself running. And then I started to play with it a little bit. It became fun. It was like I would pretend I was like almost like an avatar type body walking down the side of a river, and I would feel the river bank, like the dew on the grass underneath my feet. And I would really embody the feeling. And I think that was the key. I would embody the feeling. And then I would, like I said, I did the Tour de France and I would play with that. I would also do things like when I struggled to connect, because some days it was easier than others. Some days I could recall the feeling of running and I
Yeah.
just felt it. Other days I just couldn't. It was like the stress, the grief, the overwhelm, everything going on in hospital. It was like this mind block I had. I just couldn't connect to my body. So I would do this thing where I would rub my arm. And
Mm.
because I was physically rubbing my arm,
Yeah.
I could feel the sensations in my arm. So it helped me focus my attention onto those sensations. And then I would close my eyes, and while I'm rubbing my arm, I would see this like red and yellow and green energy start to move in my arm. And then I would feel it running through my body and see it as well and experience it.
Mm.
So I would just play with it. Anything. It was like, in fact, even now as I'm saying it, anything that I could do to help me focus my attention into my body, I would just do it. And I just played with all of these concepts and ideas, and I used Bruce Lee as an inspiration. I would watch the film The
Yeah.
Dragon most days because he broke his back before he became famous. So I'd use him as an inspiration. I was like, if he can do it, I can too.
Yeah.
You know, I know he's Bruce Lee and he's arguably superhuman, but actually, I was like, he's human. If he can do it, I can too. So I would just play with all of these things, and that's how it happened, really.
Wow. That is that's pretty cool. Just the inspiration from just hearing that. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, the program sounds pretty incredible, and just being able to have the strength of will to do that, despite expert advice to the contrary, I think says a lot about your character, which I know personally. Um, so for anybody that is interested in working with you, whether that's individually or in a program, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, Aaron?
There's two ways. Probably the best way, I mean, you can go directly via Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Just search Aaron Timms, Aaron, just for anyone out there, it says. And Timms is Timms. You can search Aaron Timms and message me privately.
Yeah.
Or I have a website. There's some information about the work that I do on there too. The website is aarontimmsofficial.com. And there's the email and there's the contact form and all of those things on the website if you want to do it via that route too.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Aaron. Really great pleasure speaking to you and hearing your story, man. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, and thank you for your time too. Thank you.
Cool.